everybody. This video is being made to kind of break down how the bass works. Now, if you're new to playing bass or any instrument, this video is probably not best for you. Not saying that you probably can't get a little bit out of it, but I'm going to be talking a lot about music and the Nashville numbering system and things of that nature. So this video is really designed to, if there's a guitar player that wants the cliff notes of how to play bass, or if there's somebody that's already musically oriented wanting to pick up an extra instrument like the bass, this is just a really quick step on how to play bass fast. So this does not take the place of bass lessons. It doesn't take the place of learning all your scales. That stuff takes time. This is just a quick breakdown. If you're a guitar player and you need a bass player for Friday night, or if your church has somebody sick and you need a replacement, and somebody that knows how to play another instrument that knows music theory that can pick up on an instrument right away. So let's get started. I'm going to use this bass here, and what we're going to talk about real quick is the numbering system. Hopefully you guys are familiar with it. If not, the numbering system is just your major scale of that chord or that key broke down into numbers. So if I'm in the key of G, my G scale is G, A, B, C, E, D, E, F sharp, G. So you would just number those. So G would be 1, A would be 2, 3 would be B, 4 would be C, so on and so forth. What's nice about bass, which is the same as guitar, but I think sometimes guitar players don't see it as much because there's more to a guitar than there is a bass, as far as the breakdown of where everything's at, is wherever your root note is on your bass. For this, I'm going to use the G, the key of G. For whatever key I'm in, here's G. My fourth position will always be directly underneath it. And my fifth will always be directly underneath it and 2 frets down. And then my second will be on the 2 frets in front of the root. So that if I'm in the key of G, I got G, C, D, A. Okay? And then my 2 main minors are going to be as follows. My G, I'm going to take 3 frets back. There's my E minor. And then again, your two position is either major or minor, so that would be the same as there. So you can kind of guide yourself in any key in that situation. So if you're playing for the first time on bass and you're really scared, but you know where your root note is, you can kind of maneuver your basic songs, like your worship songs, or your country songs, or your rock songs, are going to be somewhere in that area. So for example, if I'm in the key of D, I can play this box, D, G, A, E. So I got my root, my 4, my 5, my 2 minor or major, and then if I go back from my root 3 spots, my main minor, which is B minor. So I can play a ton of songs with just those notes. Okay. All right. So on to after navigating your main notes. If you're stuck and you're scared and you haven't really had a lot of time to practice, the main part of bass is your rhythm behind it, your right hand. So you can get away with just really playing the basic bass notes of each chord. So if I'm playing a song that's G, C, and D, what really makes that different is not the chords. There's a million songs with those 3 chords. It's what my right hand is doing. It's the rhythm of what my right hand is doing. And so if you, when in doubt, I always tell people, if you're on stage and you're like, this happens to me a lot. I get shoved on bass and I haven't had any time to practice. I don't even know what song we're doing half the time, just in my line of work. I try my best to follow the bass drum and the hi-hat of the drummer. So whatever the bass drum and the hi-hat are doing, I kind of feed off of that. And then whatever else I want to feel like I add, but that's where my main kind of home base is. So when in doubt, like if you're scared to death and you know nothing about the song, just simply play the bass drum. So if your drummer's going boom, pow, boom, boom, pow, boom, pow, boom, boom, pow, boom, pow, boom, boom, and so on forth. All right. So that kind of gives you basic rhythms. And then you have obviously your quarter note rhythms, which would be if you're in 4/4 time or whatever time, would just be to count by your quarter notes. So like just like clapping your hands to a song. And then you have your 8 note rhythm. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But if we're playing especially worship, slower stuff like that, that can get really obnoxious real quick. So I always say you got your quarter note and 8 note that you can resort to, but really follow the bass drum. If you're scared of what the rhythm is, you've never played it, you're nervous. All right, so that kind of breaks down how we find our chords in a song, how we play the rhythm of those chords, and then the last little bit of this, the last little bit of this video is just going to be about some simple fills and runs that we can do. All right, so I call this the box. I'm sure other people do. If you're playing a note, if I'm playing this D, everything if I'm in the 5th fret, everything in the 5th fret below me and everything in the 7th fret below me or below that will fit for a fill. So you can play the box is what I like to call it. So if I'm playing something G, C, and D, I can play my little fill inside the D. If I'm playing the C, I can play anything underneath that will fit. Same thing with the G. Okay? It's not perfect at times, but I think out of all, and I've been playing bass for 20 some years, and I think out of all the times I've had to fake songs, and that's kind of been my go-to. You still, because what it is you can still hear movement in the bass, so that the bass is still doing something to break up the monotony, but yet you're really comfortable in knowing where you're at, as opposed to trying to play a scale, as opposed to trying to cramp something in that you haven't practiced. You can even just do something really simple, but people will hear that and they'll relate to it. But you can hit this D, you can just play your 5th, and then your 4. You can go down and play your octave. All those cool things. I like to do one little trick I like to do. Again, this is only if I haven't practiced and I'm nervous and I don't know what I'm doing. If it's something I know, I'm not going to really use this a whole lot. This is just backup. I like to call it backup emergency information. Is I can hit my root. I can slide, I can kind of pop to my octave, or I can slide to my octave. Here's the two, I could pop, or I could slide, and then just work your way back up that box. And then you can kind of add how many notes you want in there or not want in there if you want it really simple. It flashy, whatever you want to do, and so that helps. And then another thing is just your major scale. If you're a guitar player, I'm sure you know your major scales, your do, re, mi's. If you're a singer, you probably know your do, re, mi's. If you're any kind of stringed instrument, you probably already know your do, re, mi's. So you can just add those into your fills as well. So if I'm in the G, any note of there is going to work if I'm trying to make a fill into something. Play around with that. Again, I'm not as comfortable with that if I'm throwing something on a fly. I'll usually just stick to my basics, but that's up to you. Throw your major scale in, throw your pentatonic in there. If you're a guitar player, your pentatonic notes are going to be very similar, if not the same as your guitar. You just won't have the high-end strings. But again, I use that box method very much because I know I'm guaranteed. It might not sound flashy, and it might not sound like I'm the best bass player in the world. Like, oh my gosh, listen to that guy go! But it's going to get the job done. And then, so the last thing I will say is the other pentatonic scale I use a lot. Some people call it the American Blues pentatonic. It's really just a different variation of a regular pentatonic. As I just play this. If I'm in the key of G, my root note's G, I'll hit my same pentatonic notes, A, B, D, E, back to G. Slide from A to B, and then D, E, G. So that's kind of like one thing that you can add. And I know that sounds really poppy, kind of like Motown or kind of really bright music, but you can maneuver that and kind of manipulate it and make it sound, so if you're playing something a little heavier, you could still kind of use it, just not in the same, you're not going to play it like, you might play something like, or whatever. I'm just throwing things out of the top of my head. So that's it. So if you know your national numbering system and you know where your main notes are, you can pretty much navigate. If you have to, go on Google and print out your scales, because your scales are basically your numbering system. And that way, whatever key the choir director gives you or the band leader gives you, you'll be able to say, okay, if this is E, my 4 is underneath it, which is A. My 5 is B. My 2, which is F sharp, which could be major or minor, and then back 3, C sharp, minor. So those are like your main chords of that key. And obviously there's 7 chords in every key, so there's obviously a few missing, but you can get a lot done with just those ones right there. And so, yeah, thanks for watching. If you have questions, feel free to leave it in the comments. This was just a quick tutorial. Basically an emergency. Your bass player sick. Your bass player had to work. You needed somebody to fill in on bass, or whatever. So I just wanted to shoot a video for a buddy who needed some help on bass, and I figured while I was shooting that for him, I'd just make a regular video. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, like I said earlier, leave it in the comments. Otherwise, look for my other videos on guitar, bass, ukulele, mandolin, and others. God bless.